And good afternoon and welcome to Raw Business TV. I'm Bradley and today we're excited to be joined by Dave Millett from Equinox. Hi Dave, welcome. We're down in the Chelmsford office today. We've been trying to get the webcast together for a couple of weeks now. We've had a few broadband issues, but we're here, we're live and we're good to go. So if you're joining us today and joining us live, then thank you very much for joining us. So what's the topic about today? 7 deadly sins to avoid when buying telecoms. We all go through so many challenges with telecoms in our business, and knowing what's the right service to put in that's going to give us the best value and the best level of service, expandability. Well, our main man is going to be discussing that today. And also, just before we went live actually on a webcast, we were talking very much about the offices we're in and the service we've got, and there's an opportunity already for you to put in the service to save us money. So we're going to have a chat after the webcast about what Dave can do for us. Not only that, I've got a guy down the road who's one of my friends who runs a home improvement business, and he's got about 25 or 30 people on the phone, so we're going to pop down there also to see if we can save him money. So we've got a team of 5 or 6 people here in Chelmsford, so savings, whether you're a small team or a large team, are fantastic. It's a fantastic opportunity to look at VoIP. But before we go into that, let's just give you the usual introduction about Raw Business and who we are, etc. We're an online business and entrepreneur networking company. We've got thousands of members, are becoming more and more connected every day. We offer you guys a mixture of marketing, advertising and networking for your company. We publish a leading business magazine called Raw Business. We're moving our business forward just like you guys. You know, we're going through every single day challenges, and we said as a team from day one when we started the business that we would always share our emotions, we'd always say how we feel, what we're going through. There would be no sort of hidden masks and that sort of stuff, no persona. So our mask is always off. Vulnerable, you could say, yes, but honesty I think is more important. We don't get it right all the time, but what we are getting right and what is fantastic is there are members and there are people coming to Raw that really can offer value in terms of not just the services that they offer, but value as human beings and individuals. And it's really cool to get some really fantastic people together. It's taken 3.5 years to get here, and I had a call this morning from one of my business coaches called Karen Whitelaw Smith, who's just got back from Barbados, written a second book, and she's so full of positive energy, and I love this whole kind of positive energy thing. So even though in business we go through these challenges every day, it's a fantastic thing to look at those challenges, to move forward and to overcome and to learn something. Listen, membership to our network is free. We are chasing the business dream just like you. We're in the trenches, we're fighting with you, and together we really can make something quite special with the business network that helps businesses, that supports people, and so on and so forth. Well, you know me, I can rattle on all day long about networking and how we should be coming together. Let's not do that. Let's stick on the point in question, and today it's Raw TV with Dave Millett from Equinox, and I'm going to pass over to Dave in a second, but just before I do that, I'm just going to, without stealing Dave's thunder, talk about my own experiences of telecoms. I've had everything from mobile phones to fixed line to VoIP to asterisk systems in the businesses that I've been involved in the past. And when you get telecoms right and you get your pricing structure right and you're working with someone that can deliver a great package, that you've got good communication links, it is absolutely the best place to be, because communication is everything. It's all we are, how we communicate and what we do, and when you get it right, it's a great feeling. So I'm really pleased to welcome Dave today to Raw Business, and I'm really pleased that Dave's going to be sharing with you the seven deadly sins to avoid when buying telecoms. I'm going to pass across to Dave now. I'm going to jump out the screen. Dave's going to deliver the webcast to you. I hope you all enjoy it. Just a couple of things. When you're looking at the video player in front of you, please feel free to click on the dots on the player screen, which increases the size of the video. If you're watching this in an archive position, so you're viewing this later, you can view it in the Raw Business TV archives, then please do feel free to contact Dave, and we'll give you the details as we go through the webcast so you can make direct contact. Even if you've got any questions, you may want to come and join us online. Don't be afraid. Put your name in the box. Maybe ask a couple of chat questions, and let's get this this whole webcast TV community moving forward. It's over from me to Dave now. We look forward to the presentation. Have fun, Dave, on screen as well.
Thanks, right.
Enjoy talking to people. I'll come back at the end and we'll have a little bit of banter and talk a bit more about some of the things that you guys have covered today on the webcast. Have fun. Over to you, Dave.
Hi, thanks a lot, Bradley. Hi, everyone. I mean, as Bradley said, we all use telecoms, we all use communications. Some recent reports said something like 80% of all businesses do their transactions over the telephone these days, yet so many companies get it wrong. And it's not their fault, it's a confusion of what's out there, what information's available. So what I want to try and do over the next 20, 25 minutes is give you the sins to avoid and perhaps a couple of options you might not have thought about or how you can use telecoms within your business. So walking through the 7 cardinal sins, and I'm sure most of you know all of them, and then talking about a couple of the startup technologies that you can potentially use. So let's talk about the first sin, sloth. I know we're all busy people, but how many people have actually gone and picked up some telecoms and not read the contract? Unfortunately, like all industries, telecoms industry has got some people in it that perhaps don't necessarily live up to the ethical standards we'd all like everyone to behave to. So there are 1 or 2 things to always read in every telecoms contract before you sign it. Most importantly, what's the term period? How long is it going to last for? I've seen some sleight of hand tricks where the box on the front of the contract says minimum term, and then in the small print says if minimum term left empty, this contract is valid for 60 months. Now, Ofcom is trying to make some regulation to check this, but it's still worth your time just checking that one thing or asking the question, have it highlighted to you. Secondly, if you do have to terminate for any reason, perhaps your business has downsized, you need to move offices, you might have grown, you need to move offices, or you just want to get out of the deal, always find out what are the penalties for early termination. Now again, Ofcom has recommended rather than legislated to say they should not be onerous, but there are lots of people out there that include in their contracts the penalties for calls you would have made for the rest of the contract or a percentage of them, whereas the better providers, once you're beyond the first year, will perhaps charge you 20% of the remaining line rentals. I'm never against their saying there shouldn't be some penalty if you terminate a contract, but it needs to be fair and reasonable. So always get someone to quantify that before you sign any contract. And also, what's the notice period? What's the renewal process? Again, Ofcom are making some recommendations. There should be no automatic rollover contracts, but also there are other players out there that sort of say, well, you've got to let us know 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. I even had one client who had signed a contract thinking it was a 3-year deal, and that was actually a 36-month rolling contract. So the only way it became 3 years was if you gave notice on day 1. So check those 3 things in your contract if you check nothing else. Secondly, greed. And I think one of the lessons that I think becomes very apparent to many people, a good deal is not always what it seems. Many often with telecoms, whether it's mobiles, landlines, broadband, they'll tell you what perhaps the headline rate, what's the cost of calling a local number, what's the cost of calling a mobile. That might be it. What they certainly very sometimes is, these are again the questions to ask. Are there any setup call charges for any calls or some types of calls? Otherwise you might find that if you make a lot of short duration calls, you're paying a very high setup fee. What are the calls billed to? Are they billed to the nearest minute? Are they rounded up, or are they billed to per second? You might not think that makes any difference, but particularly if you're a business that makes lots of short duration calls, appointment setting, confirmations to people like dentists, health workers, are you coming to your appointment? You might be speaking to a lot of people for 10 or 15 seconds. If you bill per minute, that can and round that up 20 or 30% to your bill without changing the tariff. Similarly, you've got the same thing, how many decimal places? Do people bill to decimal places of a penny? A lot of the better providers do. They'll bill to 2 decimal places of a penny. And that alone can often save 10% off your phone bill. And finally, do ask for a complete tariff sheet. A lot of people put in there, it's the one on the website, or it's available on request. No, don't sign a contract till it's been shown to you, and ideally dated and signed. So you've got some way of referencing it in the future, because there's, particularly if you make occasional international calls, they may be very high rates, and that might be subsidizing it. So do read all the information about all the prices. Thirdly, gluttony. A lot of deals around mobile lines say, either there's 3 minutes or the call prices are capped. For some people, those are good deals, but not always. In most cases, not at all. The 3 minutes are great if you use exactly that number of minutes. So if you get 500 minutes within your mobile contract, and that's cost you £30, that's great, and you use 500 minutes, that's great. But if you only use 250, you've just paid twice the price for that minute. And similarly, similarly true on landlines. Often you'll see deals 5p maximum cost of a call, or 10p or 20p for a mobile. What the small print doesn't tell you in most cases is there is a minimum charge for all those calls. Typically on a mobile one, it might be there's no call cheaper than 10 or 15 pence. So unless you're speaking for more than a couple of minutes at a time, you are going to be paying way too much as if you were just paying a per minute or per second rate. And people think, oh, I talk a lot longer than that. In the UK, the average business call lasts about 1 minute 55 seconds. So unless you're perhaps a headhunter doing long duration interviews, most people make short duration calls. And also, they only speak actually outgoing calls. Again, the average person, obviously different if you're a call centre or in your telesales, talk about 20 minutes a day. So 20 minutes times 20, that's 400 minutes. You know, you see people that have bought 1,000 minutes per person to make calls on their landlines. I've seen it sold on fax machines, where of course they're never going to get anywhere near it. So are your call volumes high enough to justify it? Also watch for exclusions. Some of these bundled packages exclude calls to certain destinations, most common one being free mobile phone network. So if you phone a lot of residential people where more people have 3 phones, again, it might not work for you. So those are some of the things to think about when you're making, what looks like, oh, I can have all I want for for a very flat price, or everything I can eat. Those are not always the good deals. In our experience, it perhaps works for 1 in 50. Moving on to the 4th sin, and this is the wrath of your customers. How easy is it for them to actually reach you? Particularly if you're a small business starting up, you want to make yourself available. How can they get through to you? Are you, have you got one number that's going off to an answering bureau? Is that the image you want? Do you want someone to always answer your phone? Are you happy to use a voicemail? There's also, think about what number you're using for them to reach you. In the past, everyone's gone down the 0800, the 0845 number. Yeah, well, that's still that has a valid position, but if your clients or your customers are regularly phoning you from mobiles, then it's definitely not, because very few mobile packages include 0800 or 0845 numbers for free. And there's a statistic that shows when they get that message, this call will be chargeable, about 30% of people hang up, so they won't actually complete the call. So if you're using 0800, 0845 as part of your numbering strategy, then it might be the right solution, it might not. I would also, you've got, a lot of people use 0844 numbers now, which can cost you 5 or 10p to phone you, 20p from a mobile per minute. So you're trying to encourage people to phone you, and you want them to pay for the privilege. Is that the message you want to send? You can do exactly the same with fake numbers, but with geographic numbers to give you the same impact. Also, if you're going to think about IVR or auto attendant, the old press 1 for sales, press 2 for services. Again, a lot of people abandon calls when they hear that, particularly if they have to go through more than one level of options. And if you do need it, and perhaps some larger business, it might be the way to go. Have you created a scenario they can get back to the beginning if they make a mistake, or are they locked and have to hang up and dial again? How are you handling people if they've got to queue? Are you updating the announcements? Are you telling them how long to wait? Are you giving them the option to be called back and then actually have the facility to make that call back? Everyone has peak times. There are ways of solving that. At the end of the day, when particularly in troubled times, it's key that we don't upset our customers. And one of the things that upsets customers more than anything is their inability to reach the people they want to deal with. And that has a very specific need within business continuity. And that can cover a lot of aspects. If you're in offices, someone cuts through the phone lines, or perhaps you can't get to the offices because of flood or bad weather or train strikes. You need to work from home. Have you got something in place that says, how will my customers reach you in that instance? And most people say, oh, well, I've got mobile phones. Do your customers know that? Should they need to know that? Have you thought about ways that you could just simply, at the press of a button, redirect all your calls in that event? Because again, various stats show communication loss is one of the core reasons businesses fail, because their customers can't reach them because they think they've gone out of business. Finally, last one, pride. I think we all are very proud of our businesses, and we all think we're all good business people. And everyone has that tendency to think we're a good negotiator, particularly when we're selling our own products and services, because we know what's a good price, we know what the cost of something is, we know if we've got a good deal at the knob. But the trouble with telecoms is, how do you know you've got a good deal? Do you know what the wholesale price of various items are? So, and very often you'll take it from the person in front of you. Yeah, this is the best price I can do you. But have you been able to benchmark it? Have you done a real like-for-like comparison? Sad but true, something like 80% of companies don't go and check their phone deals for about 3 years at a time, which is frightening given the rate of change that's going on within the telecoms market, how fast costs are coming down, what legislation is coming down the path that will make those costs come down. And so basically, you need to invest in time and effort to actually ensure, benchmark the prices you're getting and all the details. So unfortunately, no one likes to admit we're paying for something that we don't use. And what you also find is when you do audits of what people have got, something like 1 in 7 companies are paying for something they don't use and don't need anymore. Be it a mobile handset of someone that used to work in the company and has now left, or be it lines that are no longer used and have got more capacity. Unfortunately, in this day and age, some companies have had to lay people off, and they've still got as many connections as when they employ twice as many people. And by scaling those down, they can save a lot of money. And then there's envy. We always see other people in business, what they do, and it's always tempting to want what they've got. Oh, they've got that great feature. Wouldn't that be good for my business? And I think the trouble is, each business is different. What's good for a taxi firm is different for a firm of accountants. What's good for a hairdresser is different from a firm of marketing consultants. We all have different needs. We all run very different businesses. And what we sometimes see is, and we see it going like, oh, they've got that feature, I must have it. And people over-specify. And also there's a temptation within the industry to oversell. We were recently working with a school, a very small primary school, and they'd been recommended to buy a Cisco solution. Now, Cisco is very good kit, no one's going to say it isn't, but it's generally used by the bigger companies. And when you actually looked at the price of it, it had lots of features. Unfortunately, that school was never going to use, unless they were going to start using the sort of the 6-year-olds as call centre agents, or start teaching people in their teachers' homes. It probably wasn't the right solution. It had far too much. A much smaller alternative solution was about half the price, and it served their purpose. So I think that's a great thing when you think about technology. What is it I need to serve my business, not only today, but in over the next couple of years, and be realistic in it. Secondly, technology is changing so fast. There are new products that are coming onto the market, not quite every day, but certainly every month. We go to roadshows, we see what different companies are bringing out. So rather than just copy what someone's got, take the opportunity to actually say, yeah, this is something new that's come on that I can actually differentiate myself from my competition. And as always, there are more than one ways to skin a cat. Look at all the different ways of options. We touched on, you could go for voice over IP, you can go for PBXs, you can go for mobiles. We'll touch on some of these in a bit more detail shortly. But look at all the different ways that you can actually solve your communications problems. And then obviously one of the last things, lust. One of the things that we see most commonly is people have linked a bit to the previous one. People want these features, but they come at the price. So they think, that's all right, I'll pay for it over a long term. And we've seen 5, 7, even once a 10-year lease. And how many people can predict what their business is going to be 2 years away, let alone 5, 7 or 10? And in effect, you're building in obsolescence, because unless that lease deal guarantees upgrades as they come out, so you get the new features, 5, 7 years down the path, your system's going to be obsolete. You may be lacking the features that your competitors have. What seems a cheap way of buying technology may actually cost you a lot more in the longer term, and you have to really justify it. And again, your business shape may change. And what may suit you today, you might have outgrown it, or you unfortunately in today's day and age you may have needed to downsize. Then you're stuck with a very expensive lease. There are alternatives. Hosting is one of them. which is a more flexible way of gaining technology longer term. It's not right for everybody, but it is for some. So one of the things I would urge is before you commit yourself to a long-term lease, do look at the practical applications of signing up for a long term. And that all ties into what are the imperatives we're seeing that businesses want with their communications at the moment. Yes, we're all trying, how do we improve the customer service to get better revenue growth? We're all focused on cost reduction. And also what we're also seeing is people want predictability, the ability to know what I'm going to spend. And they want a good ROI on everything they commit to. What we're seeing is more and more people are becoming mobile. Home workers is a way, some people are looking to reduce costs, want to be accessible anywhere, wherever they go. Be it on their mobile, they want their email wherever they go, they want to be able to connect to office systems. But that brings issues around supporting multiple devices. Just having your phone list on multiple devices can be a challenge in some cases. Where do my voicemails end up? How can I access them? I mean, some people talk about unified communications, or UC. I think if you ask 10 people what that means, you'll probably get 12 different opinions. It's what's important to you. But also, as soon as you start to offer mobility, you get into a whole raft of issues around user control, privacy and security. Something like 10,000 laptops and mobile phones are left in London taxis every month. If that's not been secured, then potentially you're opening up your company to risk. And then obviously a whole raft of technical priorities. Most of us are too busy running our own businesses to worry about what are the technical things. So what people want these days is something that can be deployed rapidly, is flexible because it meets different business models as they change. Ideally, it is future-proof, coming what we were saying earlier about the software releases. And you've got the opportunity to either manage it yourself or outsource the support. And above all, it's scalable to continue to meet your business services for a period of time. So a few of the options that people, particularly startups or early businesses, look at as to how they use them, and a couple of the pros and cons of each one. Obviously, inbound services, touched on the use of 0800 numbers before, but you can use these to create multiple geographic presences. So you might want to appear you've got offices in Edinburgh, Bristol and London when you've only got an office in London. You can now achieve that with geographic numbers that announce or present where they've been called for, so you can give alternative answers. Also very suitable perhaps people who want to run multiple businesses from a single phone. They know what salutation to give when the business comes through. Those types of services are now available for a few tens of pounds a month, in quite complex, including IVRs, call recording and different announcements. So that is one option for businesses. It's quite cheap to set up, and most important, if you get the right provider, you can transfer that number. If you eventually reach a point where you've got offices, you can transfer that number into a VoIP solution that can be going through. The only downside to think about with inbound services is when you dial out, you're not going to present that number. So then you go for, do I not present any number? Or me personally, if I get an anonymous call, I tend to ignore it and let it go to voicemail. So it's just something to be bearing in mind when using inbound services. It has a lot of advantages. That's probably one of the major downsides. Obviously, mobile is what a lot of businesses start up. Think, I'll start with a mobile and go with that. Very easy to set up. There are some very good cheap deals out there for single handsets. But that alone can set. What happens when you hire your second person and the third person, and you end up with a whole raft of individual contracts at different times, sometimes with different networks? If you think that might be the case, one option to consider is group contracts, because then it's much easier to add in new users at a cheap rate. You get the ability to talk to each other for free. You share your minutes across each other, so you're not wasting time again. The only downside of only using a mobile, it does very much reinforce the impression you are a small business and possibly not here for the long term. And again, there have been various reports. A lot of people will not phone a company if all they have is a mobile number. And that you would think that perhaps might relate to the professions they're in. Perhaps people expect perhaps some trades not to have fixed numbers. It's becoming more and more common. I think there was a survey in the Sunday Mail recently saying 70% of people are suspicious of people that only have a mobile number. So again, mobile is an important part. None of us can survive without our mobile phones these days, it seems. But just relying on mobile, maybe. a disadvantage. And the third option we just touched on, of some of the newer things, is hosted voice over IP, a concept whereby you don't have equipment in your office, you share a larger telephone system in a data center somewhere. Great for flexibility, companies change inside, because with the right provider you can usually turn on or turn off licenses as you need them. Very limited and sometimes zero upfront costs without the issues of leasing. Very good for multiple sites. Perhaps people starting businesses going to work from multiple homes and then think about moving into offices. And also it's a great opportunity for office moves. I think one of the things to be aware, there are there's probably something like 80 to 100 suppliers in the UK. A lot of them are not regulated by Ofcom and can't issue their own phone numbers. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but I dealt with one client who wanted to move away from their provider, and we'd found that the numbers they've been issued came from 3 different companies, which made the actual whole transfer process very difficult. Some SIP VoIP providers not even based in the UK. The better ones are regulated by Ofcom and Otello, the Telecoms Ombudsman. And that whole thing around porting is an issue. I think Bradley mentioned at the start he'd had some issues using VoIP in the past. If you don't have the right provider, you may not be able to take your number with you, or you may be very limited where you can go. So again, that's something, if you are considering hosted VoIP, one of the key things to think about. So finally, before I sort of hand back to Bradley, the things I would ask you to take away from this is always ask difficult questions with your suppliers. Use the 7 sins as a guide and get answers in writing, so you've got something to refer back to in the future. Before you sign anything, think about how your business might change over the next couple of years. Is what's right today going to be right for me in 6 months, 12 months, or does it at least give me the flexibility to change it? Because the last thing you want to do is be constrained within your contract because your business has been very successful and it costs you a lot of money to get out of it. What's right for somebody else might not be right for you. You are your own business. Your business is unique. Therefore, think about what unique telecom solutions you need. And also bear very much in mind that whatever appears to be the cheapest deal may not be. It may look like the headline rates are very good, but when you actually drill down and look at the real cost of your business, it probably isn't. There's, the old adage, there's nothing, nothing comes for free, and in many cases there is a catch. So I do hope the people that watch this both live and on the archive have found this useful, and they can use this to advantage as they go forward. And I'll pass back to Bradley.
Hey, fantastic. Okay. Let's just get rid of that screen. Dave, I thought it was fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to go back to a couple of the slides at the start there, just to remind people what this was about. Just bear with me. Okay, I'm just going to go back and leave it on that screen there while we have a quick chat with Dave about the deadly sins. And listen, with telecoms, if you don't get your telecoms right, it can actually cost you so much money, and that's happened to me, whether it be through landline, through broadband, for all sorts of communication. So it is really important to get it right. But you know what I've found as well of the last few years, and more importantly perhaps in the last 12 months, it's not just about your communications, but it's about who you're working with that's supplying those communications. Because, and no disrespect to the large companies out there, the large companies, I won't mention a name on the webcast, but I was on the line last night trying to talk to somebody to resolve a landline and broadband issue at my home actually, and the hoops and the problems to go over and to go like 48 hours for an engineer to come back. I mean, by the time I'd finished, I wanted the phone was in bits. You can imagine, I was so frustrated. So I think it's really important that the person you choose to deal with your communications is not just someone who can provide a good service, but it's someone you can work with, and someone that might take an interest in your business. And I know that you're quite keen to take an interest in people's businesses as well as just providing the service.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the large companies are certainly not going to share business, and that's one of the things we look to do. Is a lot of our clients have actually benefited because we've introduced them to other clients, and they've made business for themselves. And I think it is important finding the right spot. One of the things we look for is simple things. Have they got call centres, support centres in the UK? Are you going to deal with someone that actually where they live or where they're based? And also, a lot of things is, one hopes a relationship with a telecom supplier never reaches that end, but I do think it's also very important to check is, are they registered with Otello, the Telecoms Ombudsman?
Yeah.
So you've actually
Yeah.
got an
Some
independent
comfort.
point to go to
Yeah.
if it ever reaches that point.
Yeah.
And so many suppliers in the UK don't register with them. It's very easy to check. Go on the Otello website before you buy from anyone and see if they're a registered supplier.
Oh, I think this is really great. I think we've got a couple of chat questions actually come through, so we'll just go on those and just double check those. I'm going to have to get close up to the screen because I'm blind as a bat without my glasses. Lady called Gina, will VoIP services definitely save money?
If you need to buy something new and you're looking at buying, say, a traditional PBX or a VoIP service, then yes, generally hosted VoIP works out about 25% cheaper. If you've already got something in place, it may be more marginal because you've got to take away your existing connections. You know, if you're a large company, something called ISDNs, and run SIP channels in. Sometimes the cost of changeover can offset it, but also now the call rates from good providers are coming down even over traditional connectivity. So that would be always the first thing I would check. But as a general rule, yes, but the cost of transfer can sometimes exceed it.
Thanks for that, Gina. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, we've got another question there from a guy called Eddie. I think we did discuss it. I think this was discussed with Dave actually. Can you upscale the system as your business grows from one-man band to larger team? Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, and definitely that's one of the advantages of VoIP. You can start with one license from your home. I think the other thing that VoIP gives you is, unlike traditional telecoms, it breaks the link between the exchange and where you're living. So you could be working from home in Surrey or Essex, Chelmsford, where we are, and you could have a London number come into your home. If you ever move, even if you move to Cornwall or Scotland, you can still take that number and add more numbers to it. Some VoIP providers, again, finding the right one, will actually reserve the next 10 numbers for you. So even if you don't need them for 3 years, you've got sequential numbers guaranteed you can call upon. Not everyone does that, but some will.
Fantastic, great. Thanks so much indeed for that, Eddie. I'm just going to flick forward to one of the screens that was interesting to me. I think it was the last one. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure why it's like that. But avoid selling your soul by signing long-term leases to get new features. This is something, again, that happened to me last night. I had originally an 18-month contract with this particular company. I'm out of contract now, and I had yesterday, I had a day off yesterday, I was in the hospital, but I started ringing around to try and look at alternative providers, because you don't do it. And I think you mentioned in the webcast that people don't actually look back and reflect over their bills. So avoid selling your soul to sign long-term leases to get new features, effectively building in obsolescence, and what suits you today may be too large or too small tomorrow. Okay, first one, avoid selling your soul by signing long-term leases to get new features. And what I say to people that's on Raw TV and the people that come online and join us, a call costs nothing to speak to you. So if for example, and we're going to go and hopefully give you a couple of contacts today, but let's say someone's got a phone bill and they don't, you don't always really put emphasis on how much your calls are costing. You really don't. So you have to rely on a specialist to say, actually, based on what you've got here and what you've used, if you were to use X system, another system, it's going to save you X. So when we get people to feel more comfortable, say, okay, listen, I've got a bill, have a look, Dave, let's see what you can do.
Yeah, that's what we get a lot of the time. People just send us their bills in. What we don't do is just look at the top level. You know, what we really want is as much detail as possible, because some things I touched on. If your average calls are much longer than somebody else, a different provider might be better. Right. Because we're not a supplier, we're a brokerage, so we've got access to virtually everybody in the marketplace. Yeah, other people are very good if you make a lot of international calls. Other people are better if you make calls to mobile, short duration. Again, I come back to every business is different, and that's why one supplier is never going to be right for everybody. It's like saying Rolls-Royce make fantastic cars, but you wouldn't use one as a tractor. And telecoms is like that. Find the one, if you've got a farm, find the one that suits you for there. If you've got a Rolls-Royce, find the one that suits you for there. So, and that's exactly what we do.
So it's a kind of telecommunications supermarket.com kind of thing. So by someone coming to you, they can feel comfortable that you're going to find the best deal for their business, given their usage and what they're doing and where they're taking it.
Yeah, we will always want to talk to them to understand their future business needs, in case. Yeah, we don't want to recommend something, as we've said there, that in 6 months' time they might say, oh, we're going to be moving. Well, we don't want to put you with them, we'll put you with them, because they can offer you a service as you move. And I think the worst thing we always say when I talk to us, we'll say, well, do you know what? You've got a good deal, stay where you are. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. and we don't charge for that service. It's free.
Fantastic. Yeah, just on telecoms, let's go through to our final thoughts here. Thanks for the questions that's come in today. Really appreciate that. Just talk about my final thoughts. I mean, obviously, question really: how much value do you place on communication to and from your company? How important is this? And look, at Raw Business, we don't always get it right. We're growing. We're just like any company. We have our fantastic days and we have our challenging days, but we have got an end goal and an idea of what we want to be and what we want to do, what we want to become. So communications is so fantastically important. In fact, it's so important that I was talking to the guys in the office here this morning. I've got a couple of guys who've been with me, 3 years now, very trusted, very loyal individuals, a guy called Ryan and a guy called Adam. And we've also got some other members of the team, Danielle and Anna, which I better mention because they've been really loyal and really pro the business. But I chatted to them this morning about telecoms, and we're actually going to be putting together a special supplement for Raw Business on telecoms, purely on telecoms, and that's going to be really exciting coming out. And I very much look forward to Dave's comments and contribution in that, because communication can, I do believe this, I believe it can make or break your business, and I think that's, I think you'd probably agree, right, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I said we get it. So 80% of all business transactions are done over the phone.
Yeah.
There might be a follow-up with a bit of paperwork, but the deal is done on the phone.
Indeed, indeed. So look, that's my final thoughts. In terms of communication and contact details, website www.equinoxcoms.co.uk, Equinoxcoms, C-O-M-M-S, equinoxcoms.co.uk. Email Dave, please, fire away, Dave Millett at equinoxcoms.co.uk. And of course, pick up the phone, communication, fantastic tool. Speak to Dave, have a chat with him. It's not going to cost you anything to make a call. And this guy may just save you money and put a better infrastructure in place for you and your future, for your business. So 02 08 912 0845. And as usual, Raw TV, if you guys have got any further questions or any advice, help, or even tips as well for something you've gone through, maybe one of Dave's customers that might want to come forward. But let's see if we can find out as much information as we can. Any requests so we can get them across to Dave. I really do feel that there's value in moving forward in VoIP. I think the systems and the structure and the platforms have just developed so much. In fact, we're using VoIP phones right now at our office, and I've got to be honest with you, I think the VoIP phones have been absolutely fantastic. In fact, we're in an open office now. We're in a small office in Chelmsford. The team's out there. I think most of them are back for lunch. I'm just going to stand up and ask the guys. Guys, we're using VoIP telecoms currently, yeah?
I believe so.
Okay. Any challenges on the phone? Any drop calls? What's the service level been like? Okay.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad. I think it's been awesome. I've not had one drop call. So we're now going to look at ways of changing our system across the Dave system. So hopefully we'll be one of his first customers from this new Raw TV webcast. But listen, thank you so much for joining us today. Just want to ask Dave what his final thoughts are on summing up, Equinox, and summing up Dave, and summing up what he could do for your business. Summary, Dave. Why not?
All right, thanks, Bradley. I think the simple thing is we're fairly unique because we're independent. We're not a supplier. We're a broker. It's in our best interest to find you the best deal, and we won't charge you anything.
There we go. Don't you just like that? Okay, so listen, guys, please feel free to make a call. I'm really pleased that Dave's taken the opportunity to come down today and to meet us on Raw TV. I've got a feeling we're going to be seeing more of Dave on the channel as we move forward, and I know that Dave will be pleased to know that our aspirations and our plans are to move to London in the not too distant future. We're actually talking about launching a business magazine in London at the moment with somebody. We'll bring you more information on that as we move it forward. But from in terms of today, thank you very much indeed, Dave, for coming on board. Really appreciate your time,
Bradley,
and your advice. And it's goodbye from me. Oh no, it's not goodbye yet. Hang on, we've got one more slide. I'm getting carried away. Next time on Raw TV. Now don't forget, this is Dan Cook. Dan Cook is coming on tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Now Daniel Cook, for you guys who don't know, Daniel Cook is our new web developer, and tomorrow he's going to be talking about the web development that's going to be going on Raw Business, some of the challenges that's involved in making sure you find the right web developer. Now, I've been through 4, 5 or 6 web developers, finally got to a guy that actually, I think, 1, he's an awesome individual, 2, he's so easy to talk to, and he understands marketing and web. So if you guys are interested in finding a man who's going to work very closely with you, somebody like Dave that's very grounded and very foot on the ground but wants to grow a business just like you, then Dan Cook is going to be a great Raw TV webcast tomorrow, because we'll be talking about Raw Business. He's the man who's now tasked we're getting Raw Business from where it is into a leading UK business networking site for us all to enjoy. Remember, Raw Business is free at the moment. There's going to be a charge shortly, but get stuck in. So we look forward to having Dan on board tomorrow. And again, last slide, everyday people achieve extraordinary things. My book, I'm still stuck on the 3rd chapter. I've got a lot of work to do. It was meant to be out at the end of January and it's now March. So I know Karen Whitelaw-Smith, one of my colleagues, is saying to me, Bradley, come on, let's get this book out. But it's coming soon. Thank you so much for taking time to listen in. And listen, have a great day, a great week, wherever you are or whatever you're doing.